Hi, my name is Leslie Schinkel, and today I will be talking about design thinking and the things that I have learned throughout this class, and specifically my design thinking project. So in talking about design thinking, the most important things to remember are that it's a human-centered and empathy-based approach to learning, collaboration, and most importantly, problem solving. And that's so important to remember because it's that focus that allows for solutions to be very individualized and work so well for the people that we work to fix things for. So the 8 key ideas, or the 8 parts of design thinking, are empathize, research, define, ideate, prototype, test, redesign, and then finalize and reflect. Design thinking can make big differences in the classroom when it's used effectively. One way that it can do that is by giving teachers the opportunity to empathize more with their students as they work to come up with realistic solutions to a challenge. The second way I highlighted is it allows for more individualized and higher quality education for students. And the third way that I highlighted is that it offers more collaboration between students and teachers. All of those are important because a relationship between a student and a teacher can really make or break how well a classroom works for a student. And teachers are crucial in the design thinking process because a lot of times they're the ones that are coming up with and fixing and going through the design thinking process to come up with a solution for whatever problem their students might be having. Some insights and questions that I found about design thinking. My first insight is that as a typically abled person, there's so much I do not understand about the struggles that those with disabilities might face. The second is that as an educator in the future, I need to constantly be looking for ways that I can make my teaching work for my students rather than making them work harder to understand my teaching. And my question, number 3, is how can we make design thinking more prevalent not only in school settings but in other places as well? So, as I said, it starts with the empathy mode, and over here on the right you can see my empathy map. So empathy is the ability to understand and share the feelings of another person. And the 3 key parts of the empathy mode were observe, engage, and immerse. And so during this part of my project, I started with an interview of Daniel and his caregiver Sylvia, his mom, and Sandra, his sister. And that interview is where I learned about him and how life is for him. I got to observe him for a few hours in his home as he kind of lived his typical day. And I created the empathy map to help me empathize with the struggles I learned about and that I saw. And a lot of my interview actually took place with his sister and his mom because they are his caregivers. He has some difficulties communicating, so while I did learn some from directly talking with him, a lot of what I learned was from his family. And the insights I found about my user are these kind of 8 things that you see here. I won't read all of them, but to start, Daniel is 11 years old and he has Down syndrome. And that causes quite a few issues with him, but he is taken care of primarily by his mother and his older sister, and he is incredibly dependent on them. They care for him around the clock when he's not at school and they're not at work, and it is difficult. He's a very happy child, but his family is exhausted, they're stressed, and they're kind of sad that he hasn't gained more independence at this point in his life. And you can tell by, or I could tell by working with him, that even though he can't express it verbally, he is frustrated at his lack of abilities. He depends on them for basically everything. And even with those feelings of frustration, sadness, stress, their home is full of love and care, and his family really, really does just love him so much, and he is very lucky to have the family he has. So moving on from empathy, we go into the define mode, and that's where we defined our problem statement. So as you can see up here, this is where I saw his needs, some insights I had about those, and then I defined his problem statement which was that Daniel needs a way to be more organized because he needs to work on being more independent. And the insights I found during this define mode were that organization is something that Daniel struggles with, and the reason he struggles is because he doesn't really understand the concept of organization. It's one of those things that he just doesn't really get. Every single part of his life would benefit from more organization, even though we focused on one. It would be great if in the future we can expand that. More independence would mean less frustration for him and his family, and less stress for his family, hopefully. And another thing is that Daniel needs a fun, engaging way to learn, so we needed to come up with a fun, engaging way to teach. Even though we know that the teaching will probably be very difficult and include some frustration on Daniel's part and our part, but we know he will benefit greatly. Moving on to the ideate mode, it kind of got cut off, but these are some of the ideas I came up with, which I'll get into on the next slide. So my 5 ideas, best ideas, were, first of all, a customizable iPad app to teach him about organization and to show him how to organize. My other idea was a simple symbol system for his drawers. Similarly, a complex picture system for his drawers, a backpack with organization compartments, and then just Daniel-led ideas for how he himself wanted to keep things organized, rather than us coming up with a way and teaching him. There were definitely some successes and challenges. We did have some ideas that we felt like would almost certainly work one way or another, but some ideas at this point just weren't really realistic for Daniel. And most importantly, I received really good feedback, and we decided on an idea that we're hopeful about. So this is where I wrote down the feedback that I received over here on the left. The app was kind of our number one idea. Everybody really enjoyed that idea because Daniel really enjoys being on the iPad. He uses it for a lot and he loves it. And so we knew that that would be something that he probably wouldn't see so much as work or learning, but more as having fun. But we kind of realized that we, at this point, don't really have the resources needed to make it reality because it would need to be 100% made for him, 100% customizable for him. We all liked the picture and symbol system, but we kind of needed to just decide based on the pros and cons of each which one would be better for him. We decided the picture system would be easier for him to understand, but a symbol system would lead to more independence. The backpack idea seemed complex, not something to really easily monitor at home, as it would mostly have to do with school. And Daniel-led organization would likely end in chaos since he doesn't grasp the concept of organization, so it wouldn't really lead to anything really being organized. So we ultimately decided on the complex picture system as our prototype. So for the prototype mode, this is kind of the picture that I drew to show what it would be. And it just needed some work. There were quite a few challenges. It was very complex to have a picture of every single clothing item and toy and movie and everything. It was a lot of work to even get the system started, and it needed to be updated constantly as things are added. Every time he got a new pair of socks, it would have to be cataloged and added to the drawers. And it was kind of cluttered and just not a great system, and we believe that he can do a lot more. Even though the picture system was really easy for him to understand because he could see this red shirt belongs in this drawer, we knew that he could do better than that if we gave him the opportunity. So the successes were that it was easy to understand, and he really liked the process of like taking all of his clothes out and getting to take a picture of them. But with the feedback given, we ultimately decided to modify and test the simple symbol system instead of the complex picture system. So for the test mode, this picture shows the feedback I received, what worked, what could be improved, the questions and ideas. And overall, the test mode was a great success. We did have some challenges, biggest one being that he didn't really understand the concept of folding or keeping his drawers looking nice, even though he understood for the most part what went in them. And he didn't have a total understanding. It was a kind of an incomplete understanding of how the symbols worked. But in successes, he really wanted to be more independent, which was great news. It let his mom have one less thing to worry about, and it can be easily remedied to help with the things that he struggled with. So for insights, Daniel was so excited to learn something new. Our big issue was folding, but that could be easily fixed by supplying him with a folding board. Practice makes perfect was my biggest one, because I know that even though he might have struggled with it the first few times we observed him doing it, practice, he would eventually figure it out. So now moving on to reflections, I really want to continue to use design thinking, especially as I start teaching in the future. And I also decided that empathy is really a crucial thing for me to develop as an educator. And those with disabilities often have the same abilities as those without. They just need life to work with them rather than against them. And I learned a lot about Daniel and his family, but I also learned a lot about myself, which I will get into on the next slide. As an innovator, I learned a lot about myself through this project, especially that I can become easily frustrated when faced with challenges. But I got over that by remembering that I was doing this to help someone else. I loved exploring more about empathy and learning more about my user and his family, and about other disabilities, and thinking about ways that I could maybe help. And the most important takeaway for me was that the world is often working against individuals with disabilities, and that with just a little help and understanding, they can do so many of the same exact things I do. And design thinking is helpful for every student, not just those with disabilities, which is something I should remember as I go into education. And that's all I have. Thank you so much.